Okay, this is November 14th, 2020, and I want to talk about competition. We talked about it in conjunction with Trump's approach to international relations in a previous episode. Today I would like to relate a little bit about competition with what I learned from Jordan Peterson, who's one of the people that I became aware of as I was trying to understand Trump and politics back in 2015 and 2016. Jordan Peterson has a course and a book called Maps of Meaning. And these are related to what Scott Adams refers to the two movies and what I would call theories or models, depending on what level you are in Piaget's stage hierarchy or our stage hierarchy. And worldviews is another name for them. I like the maps analogy because there are a great variety of maps and they have various details and they can emphasize certain things and de-emphasize others, and I think that's the way they work for people. Each person has their own map that they've constructed. It may be coordinated, their development may be coordinated with the development of other people's maps through interaction with peers or through instruction, but they're also unique in some respects. And they vary in many respects. You can think of them, some of them as being higher resolution than others, and some of them being distorted relative to reality, maybe by such mechanisms as confirmation bias, which is something that Scott Adams talks about. One of the sources of confirmation bias is stems from one's ideology. You're more likely to see the world in a way that's consistent with your ideology and reject or ignore facts or aspects of reality that are inconsistent with your ideology. And I think, first of all, that maps are simplifications in general of whatever it is they're maps of. I know there's Google Earth and it has photographs with great detail, but are not very useful, for example, for navigating. In most cases, like if you're driving from here to there, you would rather have a little less detail and more emphasis on the roads and maybe traffic conditions. So most maps, or every map, is a simplification of reality. And of course, depending on somebody's needs or preferences, the way they've simplified will differ from person to person. Now, when it comes to Donald Trump, it is my opinion that his map is more precise and accurate than most people's. I think that's come because he's put himself in a lot of situations where he's competing and success or failure depended on him having a better ability to see the outcome of some interaction than most of the people that he was dealing with. And they might have been a select. These are people doing real estate negotiations and the like. And I think part of it is he doesn't have much of an ideology in the sense of something that would get in the way of him seeing, foreseeing outcomes that might be difficult for other people to see. An example would be as dealing with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un where Trump would call Kim Jong-un, who at the time was sort of threatening nuclear warfare with the United States, Rocket Man, and insulted him in various ways, and bragged in certain ways that most Americans would say, "Oh no, that's not going to work." But eventually he did he didn't solve the problem, but he diffused the tensions. We don't worry right now about North Korea attacking. I mean, that could change in the future. But at least as a result of his initial efforts, we've come to a point that we like. And you have to ask, well, maybe his calling Kim Jong-un names like Rocket Man wasn't a bad thing, but it's not something somebody else would have done. I think Donald Trump's administration's policies with regard to the Mideast, I think my understanding is that the wisdom of experts was that in order to create peace in the Mideast, where you have Arab states making peace with Israel in particular, that would require first solving the Palestinian problem. In other words, you have to get Israel and Palestine to get along, and then once that had been done, then you could reach out to the Arab states. And Trump used a completely different approach where he started making the Palestine situation progressively worse, saying if you make a deal today, you'll get this deal. If you wait till tomorrow, it's going to be a little worse. And at the same time, he removed some other threats that are a concern to the Arab states, like threats from Iran, because he's got them out of he abandoned the nuclear deal and put Iran under sanctions, showed that they are weak compared to the United States. And so the United States was was the strong person around, and that strong party around. And so the Arab states could feel good about being on the side of somebody who had the power. And I think those strategies, and probably a lot of things that I'm unaware of, prompted UAE, Sudan, and can't remember the third right now, Arab states to make some sort of economic pacts with Israel. And not too much has been said about Trump's administration getting Kosovo and Serbia to improve their relations, but if people are aware of what has gone on there in the past, that was quite an accomplishment. And he did get nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize based upon both his work in the Middle East and on his work with Serbia and Kosovo. So I think that the understanding that there are these maps, they differ from person to person, and that some people, whether you agree with me on the analysis of Trump or not, have more accurate maps than others. So one of the things I was going to say, that if you live in a society where everyone is made to feel good whether they're doing well or not, they get an A even though they haven't learned how to read or can't do any math, and they graduate from high school without those skills. If those persons have developed inaccurate or distorted maps, they won't be penalized for that. So they will hold on to those, and they just won't know that what they believe or the ideology or whatever's behind their map needed some fixing along the way. And so a lot of the decisions they make in life will not be have the expected outcomes, or they won't understand what the outcomes are. They might be long-lasting. They may not have to deal with them right away. Excuse me. But when you're in competition, you maybe find out right away that something about what you're doing doesn't work, and so you have to make some adjustments. So I think competition, whether it's in academics or in sports, is where I mostly think of it. That competition is helping you ensure that your map of the world is sufficiently high resolution and sufficiently accurate. I think there's another point. I often think about basketball, which is a sport that I've watched quite a bit. I'm from Chicago, and I wasn't that big a fan until Michael Jordan showed up, and then all of a sudden became my favorite sport. But it's very interesting. Let's say you're competing against Los Angeles Lakers, and they have this guy Shaquille O'Neal, who's just bigger and stronger than anybody else on the court, and he's basically unstoppable. So how do you stop him? Well, you start fouling him. Well, fouling is illegal, right? And everybody knows that, but people foul him anyway. That's because the punishment that they expect to get some of the times they foul him is less injurious to their chances to win than just letting him go do what he wants at will. So he was treated, in my mind, very badly in basketball, but otherwise it would be very hard to compete with the Los Angeles Lakers during his tenure there. And this whole idea that there are these rules of the games and there are these things that you shouldn't do, but you do on purpose, knowing that you are or may be penalized, and that's part of the game in the end. Cheating in a sense and breaking the rules is part of the game, and so you have the game and its rules, but you can break some of the rules, and so there's sort of this another set of rules that are not written that define a band of activities that you can engage in and maybe make the difference between winning and losing, and your ability to play in that realm will depend on how well you do. I think that's a fascinating side of competition and has a lot to do with how accurate your map of reality is, because your map of reality should take into account that it is advantageous to break rules under certain circumstances. So I would say that I guess that's all the content I have, and I haven't completely organized my thoughts yet. So thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.